reported on justice, we've sounded the alarm on how real the threat is to the U.S. power grid and how critical it is for Congress to act now to protect it. My next guest's vital legislation to help secure the grid is finally on the path to help Americans. But will it be enough? With me now, Chairman of the Electromagnetic Pulse Caucus, Congressman Trent Franks. Good evening, Congressman. It's been a long journey, but the House has recently passed your SHIELD amendment to the energy bill. Are you happy with this?
Judge, I'm not only happy, I am very grateful. And let me just say first, I'm grateful to you. You've been a champion from the very beginning, and we would not be where we are right now if it weren't for you. And in that same vein, I'd like to thank Fred Upton, because he could have resisted this amendment, but instead decided to support it, and it was critical. And so I just am extremely grateful for this great advance that we've made.
Okay, what is the next step?
Well, the next step, of course, is the Senate. We have now passed both the Critical Infrastructure Protection Act in the House, and that amendment, that bill has now passed the Senate committees. And we recently passed the SHIELD Act, or attached the SHIELD Act to the main energy bill, and that bill now is going over to the Senate. So it's all in the Senate's hands right now. But I have to tell you, I really would look for presidential leadership here a little bit if we could ever find it. It seems like we have to realize that there are two components to every threat that this country faces, and that is intent and capacity. ISIS, when they started into Iraq, there were 50 of us that signed a letter to the president, said, you've got to stop these guys or you will be inviting them to our own shores. And he ignored that, stood there with a golf club in his hand and let them rape and butcher and crucify and behead their way across Iraq. And now they have come to our shores. And so now there's a second plea that I have to the president, and that is that he would help us work to pass this SHIELD Act, because we have such a vulnerability here. And Iran is now on track to potentially gain a nuclear weapons capability. If that happens, all the necessary components will be there for global jihad to try to attack this country using weaponized EMP. And our experts are now calling this the kill shot against America. It's that serious.
All right. Now, given what has happened as of late, there's no question that our national security is tied into our nation's electric grid. And I understand that the Defense Department is dependent on the civilian energy grid. So what can and what do you think the president is going to do?
Well, that's such an important point that you just made. The Defense Department in America depends upon the civilian grid for 99% of their electricity needs, without which they say themselves they cannot affect their ultimate mission. So it's very serious. We never have to argue with the generals. We've spent literally billions of dollars in the last several decades hardening our critical defense assets. They know it's real, but the civilian grid remains vulnerable, and it is an invitation for our enemies to try to exploit it. In fact, Iran, we were able to translate one of their military doctrines here not long ago, and they mentioned attacking electric grids as their way of taking on countries like this, and they mentioned weaponized EMP 22 times.
Trent Franks, thanks. All right, we'll be right back with the Instant Poll results. Stay with us.